Hey guys, welcome to our channel Mystery Recaps. Today we will recap a 1981 horror movie named An American Werewolf in London. In northeastern England, two American backpackers, David Kessler and Jack Goodman, get off a truck full of sheep. Before leaving, the driver advises them to stay on the roads, and the pair start their trekking journey across the moors in Yorkshire. As night falls, they decide to stop in a small town to rest. They find a pub called the Slaughterland with a bleeding wolf head as the sign, but they enter anyway. Everyone inside instantly becomes silent until they have made their order. Jack then notices a five-pointed star painted on the wall, and when he asks about it, the pub goers kick them out. The bartender thinks it's not right for them to kick them out, but the men don't let her interfere. The men then warn the two to stay clear of the moors and beware of the full moon. After the two are gone, the men discuss that they have probably sent the boys to their murder. When a wolf begins to howl, the bartender asks the men to go fetch the boys, but they pretend to hear nothing. Meanwhile, David and Jack accidentally get off the road. They start hearing the wolf howling, and they run in the opposite direction. However, David trips and falls. The wolf then attacks Jack and kills him, then goes after David. But it only gets to bite him once before the men from the pub arrive and kill it. Before passing out, David notices a naked man on the ground, bleeding from his gunshot wounds. 3 weeks later, David is at a hospital in London where Dr. J.S. Hirsch and nurse Alex Price are discussing his case while he is still unconscious. David finally wakes up and finds the doctor and a man from the American embassy who tells him that their families have already been informed about what happened. He begins freaking out when he hears Jack is dead, so the nurse gives him a sedative and he passes out. Later, two detectives from Scotland Yard come and ask David some questions, but they don't believe him when he says he was attacked by a wolf. The autopsy report and the witnesses say it was a lunatic man. David does not understand how there could have been witnesses, and Dr. Hirsch blames it on memory issues, but David claims his memory is fine. Later, David dreams himself naked, running and attacking some animals to eat them. When lunch is brought to him, he refuses to eat. The nurse Alex starts feeding him herself. When David falls asleep again, he sees another nightmare. This time, he's running through the forest and sees himself on the hospital bed, making a monstrous face at Alex when she comes to check on him. When he wakes up, he tells Dr. Hirsch that his dreams are so vivid and real, but the doctor blames it on the traumatic experience. David does not want to be alone, so Dr. Hirsch sends Alex. When David falls asleep, he begins having another nightmare. This time, he is in his family home, and he sees how monster soldiers kill everyone before lighting the house on fire. As soon as he wakes up, he tells Alex about it, but a monster soldier breaks through the window and kills her too. It's morning, and David wakes up for real this time. He gets ready for breakfast, but he suddenly sees something quite shocking. What do you think David sees? Pause the video and let us know in the comment section. David sees Jack's ghost with scars all over his body. Jack then says that they were attacked by a werewolf and that he is cursed to have to walk the earth until the curse is lifted and David will transform into a wolf on the full moon. He also urges David to die so that he doesn't kill people. However, David does not want to listen to Jack any longer, so he calls for the nurse. When Alex arrives, Jack is gone. David kisses Alex before telling her he's a werewolf and that the ghost of Jack has visited him, but Alex doesn't believe him. Now, David is healthy enough to be discharged, and Alex invites him to stay in her apartment. After Alex gives David a tour of the place, the two of them end up sleeping with each other. Once Alex has fallen asleep, David goes to the bathroom and again finds Jack's ghost who has started to rot. Once again, Jack reminds David that he needs to die before he ends up killing someone. Hearing the voices, Alex wakes up and comes over, and Jack disappears. David then shares his concerns. Alex gives him comfort and tells him that he probably just feels bad because he couldn't save Jack. The following day, Dr. Hirsch drives to Yorkshire to visit the Slaughterland and check on David's story. When he starts questioning, everybody in the pub pretends to be ignorant, and when Hirsch notices the pentagram, they just tell him it was already there when they got the place. Hirsch then decides to leave, but he finds a man waiting for him outside. This man warns him that David and the people around him are in danger. Just then, a man from the pub comes out and makes him shut up. Back in London, Alex is leaving for work, so David comes out to kiss her goodbye. He then ends up accidentally locking himself out of the house, so he has to climb through the window. While trying to do this, a dog and a cat walk by, and both animals react very hostile towards him. Once he's back inside, David checks himself in the mirror, but he doesn't find anything weird. Then he tries to keep himself busy by watching television, eating, and reading. Yet he gets bored. However, when night falls, David starts yelling when he suddenly feels his body burning. He takes off his clothes and begins transforming into a werewolf. He then escapes the house to find prey. David catches a couple in the garden and kills them there. Hearing the noises outside, the owner goes to check and finds the bodies. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Hirsch is worried about David, so he makes Alex call her house to check on him. When nobody picks up the phone, Hirsch reveals that the case was closed, the file was misplaced, and David's injuries were taken care of before he arrived in London, yet no doctor had seen him. According to Hirsch, David believed it was a werewolf because everyone in that town believed so. Hirsch thinks David will go crazy and hurt other people, so he decides to call the police, even when Alex says that David needs psychiatric help. Meanwhile, David is still looking for more prey. He then gets inside the subway station and attacks a man. The following morning, David wakes up naked inside the wolf cage at the zoo. He has no idea how he got there. David gets out of the cage and sneaks around. First, he steals some balloons from a kid to cover himself, and then he takes a lady's coat from a bench. After putting it on, he takes the bus to return home. In the meantime, Dr. Hirsch calls Alex, but she hasn't seen him yet. Hirsch gets a newspaper, which has published news about all the deaths from the previous night. Do you think Dr. Hirsch will tell Alex about the deaths? Let's watch ahead. Make sure you hit that like button if you are enjoying the video. When David arrives home, Alex is relieved to see him, but she does not notice anything strange other than his story of waking up at the zoo. When Dr. Hirsch calls again, Alex tells him that David is confused, but is pretty straightforward. Hirsch decides not to tell her about the news and asks her to bring David to the hospital. The couple take a cab to the hospital, and the driver comments on the deaths, saying how all the victims had been mutilated. David immediately realizes that it was his fault and gets out of the car to find a police officer. Alex does not want him to turn himself in, but David does not listen to her. He finds a cop and tells him that he killed those people last night. But since the officer doesn't do anything, David starts insulting the cop, trying to get arrested. The cop just thinks that David is a crazy man and leaves him. Just then, David tells Alex that he loves her and kisses her before running away because he is dangerous. Back in the hospital, Hirsch is visited by the detectives again, who admit that the lab report states that the killer was some sort of animal and that they promised to find David. Meanwhile, David calls his family to tell them that he loves them, then tries to kill himself using a knife, but he fails to do so. He then finds Jack's rotten ghost outside an adult movie theater, asking him to follow him inside. David goes inside and finds Jack sitting at the back of the room with his new ghost friends. All the ghosts of David's victims appear around them, and together with Jack, they suggest how to end things more effectively. Unfortunately, it is a full moon, and David begins transforming again. He starts attacking the people in the theater, and when the usher comes in to check on the noise, he gets killed as well. A crowd starts forming around the theater entrance, and soon, the police get to the scene. An officer enters the building and finds the wolf feeding on the body. So he runs out and asks the other cops to help him close the shutter doors. More officers arrive to help, including the detectives, but David breaks through the shutter and kills the detective before running away. At the hospital, Hirsch hears about this incident and tells Alex, who rushes out to help David. She finds him by following the police officers, who have cornered the wolf inside an alley. Alex gets closer to the wolf, offers her help, and tells him that she loves him. The wolf snarls at her, and the cops shoot him before he can attack. Alex watches David turn into his human form and die naked on the ground. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe button, and the bell icon to watch more exciting movie recaps.